Today is one of the most anticipated days of my year outside of Christmas, and that's because today is a book birthday for one of my favorite authors, and that is Robin Hobb and her book Assassin's Fate. So today I'm going to give you guys my review of this wonderful book. Hello everyone, it is Sam, and I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. I am excited about today's video because it is a book birthday for one of Robin Hobb's books, so a big happy birthday to Robin Hobb and her book Assassin's Fate. I actually got this arc from the publisher. I requested it. It's the first time I've requested an arc from a big publisher, and I was surprised because I got it like right away, and I was so excited, guys. It was one of the best moments ever when I realized what was waiting for me at home. I was so excited. So I got to read it a couple of months ago, and I've been waiting to give you guys my review and tell you my thoughts on it, and that's what this video is all about today. So I don't want to go too much into the plot of this book because this is the final book that fits in the full trilogy, and at the moment the final book in the Land of the Elderling series. So all of her various series are tied together and they all kind of culminate in this book. So all of the characters from the other books you see again in this one, and they all interact, and there's just all of the different plot lines kind of come together in this book. So you definitely need to read all of her books before you get to this trilogy because you'll be a little bit lost in this one, particularly in the last book. So I will say that. Though I don't want to go too much into the plot because it will be filled with spoilers. I'm trying to keep this review fairly spoiler free. So with that said, I'm just gonna kind of go into my thoughts on it and what I thought of the book as a whole. I have to say I really enjoyed this book. As surprise. It was pretty emotional, particularly the last half of the book, and I think in part because I knew it was going to be the last one, and being able to see all of the various characters interact with each other from the prior books was fantastic. I love stuff like that. I love seeing characters meet other characters that hadn't previously met before, and like knowing each character's past and like how they're all interconnected was just really fantastic, and it was definitely a treat to read. So that was just one of the things I absolutely loved about this book. If you're at all familiar with this trilogy, you'll also know that you get a second character perspective, and that is a character of B. I won't go too much into who this character is because that's a spoiler, so if you haven't read most of the first book or any of the prior books, I don't want to completely spoil anybody, but suffice it to say I loved having her perspective in this book as well as Fitz's. I think they offset each other very well, even though they're quite similar in many ways. So if you read this or know this series, you'll know what I'm talking about. So that was pretty great to see as well. Although I will say one of the problems I did have with this book was that B's plotline did feel a little bit repetitive, a little bit how Fitz's did in Assassin's Quest. So there were a couple of times where the same thing kind of happened more than once. I mean, it was different, but the same kind of thing happened. I felt like her storyline could have been cut down a little bit. I felt like there were parts of this book that could have been edited down a little bit more. I don't know, that could have happened. This was an advanced reader copy, and sometimes things do become rewritten after it is read. So I'm definitely going to be picking up the final copy today, and I will be rereading it at some point in the near future and kind of seeing how the two differ between the arcs and the final copy. The writing in this book was just as good as it's always been. I really love Robin Hobb's writing. She's very detailed, and she focuses a lot on the little things, which I like. I really like overly detailed books. I like books that are kind of a little bit more on the slow and meandering side, but also have some action thrown in. And I think that Robin Hobb is able to maintain that balance really well. She has a lot of emotional elements to her books, a lot of action-packed moments, but she's able to incorporate a lot of detail of the world and the characters and sights and sounds that really immerses you in the story, makes you feel like you're a part of the thread of the narrative, which I really enjoy. I think that's why I love her books so much, is that they just feel very immersive. I can just really immerse myself in the story and feel like I'm there with the characters, which I feel like is hard to do, at least for me. I feel like for me it's a challenge to find books that are able to do that for me. Lord of the Rings, of course, was one of my first experiences as a child of that type of a story. So I think that's why her books mean so much to me, is because she's one of those rare authors that is able to kind of pull me into the story completely, and I feel super invested in whatever is going on. And this book was no exception. I definitely felt that as I have in her prior books, and her writing was just spot on with this book. And of course, one of my favorite parts of this book is Fitz and the Fool. I absolutely love their relationship. The Fool is one of my absolute favorite literary characters ever. He's an amazing character, and I love him to bits. And we got to learn so much more about the Fool and his past in this book, and just the way how he was led on the path that he took throughout all of the books. It kind of all culminates in this one. You really get an insight into the Fool's life and what led him to make the decisions that he made. And having Fitz at his side, I think this was the closest the Fitz and the Fool have ever been to each other, and I absolutely love seeing their relationship kind of progress to this point because they've always been connected and they've always just been there for each other, and the Fool's love for Fitz is just so beautiful, and I just love it so much. And I think this book really kind of took all of the prior books of these two characters and just wrapped it all into a tidy little bow. You got to see just the culmination of the relationship together, and I absolutely adored it. The ending of this book as well was pretty emotional. I think for more than one reason. Of course, for the story itself and what was occurring in it was very emotional, but also because I knew this was going to be the last book, and I wasn't ready to let it go, I think. I mean, I knew it was coming, but there's a part of you that gets so attached to characters that it's hard to see it end. And yes, you can reread, but it's never quite the same as when you first read the books. And I think that was why I felt so emotional the last couple hundred pages, because I knew it was coming to an end. And combined with what was happening in the plot, it just made for kind of a teary read the last couple hundred pages. I think the way that she ended it with Fitz and the Fool was the best way to do it, if I'm perfectly honest. I thought that though it may not have quite been what I was expecting, or maybe even what I wanted, I think that it was probably the best way to end it, and so I do agree with how she wrote it. I do still have some lingering questions though left at the end of the book. Some of the questions I had from the prior books aren't quite answered in this book. I still have a couple lingering questions, such as who exactly are all of the beings and the skill pillars. That was one big question I still kind of had lingering towards the end of this book. I also feel like it would have been nice to get even more of a history of the dragons and the elderlings, though we did get more history in the Rainwild Chronicles and even this series itself. I still feel like it would have been nice to have more, especially everything that was going on in the world at the time that the elderlings and the dragons kind of vanished. That would have been kind of cool to know. So I can definitely see how she left the book open to continue on. I can definitely see how she continued to write more books in this series, whether it be prequel novels or even going on with other characters that were left at the end of this book. I can definitely see how the story could continue, and I will forever keep my fingers crossed that Robin Hobb will continue her elderlings world, because I want more. I will never have enough. I will never be sated. So yes, it was a very emotional book, but it was one that I really, really enjoyed. So my rating breakdown for this book is as follows. I ended up giving the writing 5 out of 5 stars. I think this was Robin Hobb's writing at its finest. I would give the characters 4.5 out of 5 stars. Some of the characters, the side characters, I feel like we could have had a little bit more of. This, of course, is a story centered on Fitz and the Fool and B. But I would have liked to kind of have a little bit more of some of the other characters that we only saw a little bit of. I would give the plot of this book 4.5 out of 5 stars, because I feel like some parts of it could have been refined or a little bit more, or could have been edited a little bit more, but overall I thought the plot was still pretty good and solid. I would give the world building a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Excellent world building, though I think the half a star off is more me just wanting more. Of course, it's already like an 800-page book and you can only fit so much into a book, but I feel like we still could have had a little bit more of a history surrounding the past and events that occurred in the past. So I ended up giving this book an overall star rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. It was very emotional, but it was also just really wonderful and really beautiful. I'm really glad that I read Robin Hobb's books, and I've been on this journey for a couple of years now, and I definitely am looking forward to rereading all of her books. I'm hoping later this year to just sit and binge read all of her books straight through and kind of see how my opinions might differ on some things, and see if I pick up on things I've missed, and just how other things may have interconnected that I missed and things like that. So I'm looking forward to that, particularly getting back to this one after having reread all of the other 15 books before it. So that's something I'm hoping to do later this year, especially since I'm not ready to let these characters go. It's just a wonderful, wonderful read. So good, guys. If you haven't picked up on Robin Hobb yet, I highly recommend her books. They're a must-read for any fantasy lover, and I think they're also a good stepping stone for people who are new to fantasy but kind of want to explore the genre more. And I also think they're perfect books for even the literary fiction lover, because these books are kind of like fantasy for literary fiction lovers, the way that she writes them, and they're very much character-focused and just so good, guys. So I'll leave down in the description box below the reading order for all of Robin Hobb's books in case you are curious about that. And yeah, I hope you guys will read them and enjoy them. And if you've read this book, you guys will have to let me know what your thoughts are on it, because I want to know. I'd love to talk about this book with everybody, but yes, I just so much love for this book, and happy birthday to Assassin's Fate and Robin Hobb. All right, everyone, that is it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Until next time, happy reading. Bye.